Hey homeschoolers, I'm Melissa Webb, former full-time classroom teacher and homeschool mom turned full-time business CEO and encourager to homeschool families everywhere. I am determined and dedicated to helping you in this journey that you're on. Yes, I want to give you sound, educational, practical tips and advice, at the same time making sure that you're enjoying the family journey that you are on. So if you are looking for a place to be encouraged and inspired, you have found the perfect podcast. Homeschooling is a work of heart is truly the perfect place to start. So welcome. Let's jump in. Well, hey there, Pod Squad. I hope this week has been good to you. All is well in my neck of the woods. I'm curious if this week's title piqued your curiosity from insult to insight. I hope so. I am looking forward to sharing some things with you. I'm wondering if you are lucky enough to have the kinds of friends that I have, friends who can offer you elevated conversations. I have a handful of friends that I can have elevated conversations with, but there is one in particular who is always so fun to talk with. We can talk about anything and everything, and we don't see eye to eye on everything. And I think that's part of what makes our conversations so fabulous. We can go so deep, and we can also keep it lighthearted. She is whimsical and delightful, and I always walk away still thinking about the good stuff we discussed. We've discussed a lot of things, but one of the things we discussed not so long ago was how sensitive people are today. It's pretty easy to offend someone. I mean, it hardly takes any effort at all. In fact, one may not even realize the offense has taken place. I don't know if it's always been like this. Maybe it has, and I'm just now noticing. Or is this something new? I really don't know. I would love to know your thoughts on it. But as my friend and I were talking, I had shared with her that I'm pretty good at turning criticism into compliments, which she laughed at, of course. And I know that maybe sounds strange. And she, of course, is like, oh, you need to tell me an example. What are you talking about? I thought back to a time I had first started my online business, so I had left the classroom and I needed to host some webinars to share what I was doing with homeschooling families and teaching writing, etc. There's no doubt that when I held this early on webinar, I was really nervous, but I was also super excited. And in general, I'm a pretty energetic person. And so during this webinar, I doubt I ever stopped smiling. I'm sure I smiled the whole time. I had all this energy, and I made a lot of new friends in that webinar. And a lot of them came on board and they were super excited. However, one of the ones who did sign up, when I asked about her friend, she said, oh no, she said she wouldn't be signing up. And of course, I was like, really? Why? And she said, well, she thinks you're a phony. That was the word she used, a phony. She said, yeah, there's no way. No one is that chipper, that positive, or that happy. And if she is, then she's not my cup of tea. Phony. Wow. Ouch. Isn't it interesting to watch how our brains work when something like that happens? Do you become defensive or do your feelings get hurt? How do you respond with things like that? For me, typically, I get very curious and I question myself. I recall asking myself, am I a phony? I want to look at that. I want to consider, is that true? But very quickly, it was a simple answer for me. Nope. I know I'm not a phony. I know who I am. I'm very confident in who I am, and I show up as my genuine self. I am super positive. I mean, I'm the Pollyanna type of positive, and I'm very happy. That is who I am. And I'm not everyone's cup of tea. So kudos to her because she was right about that. She knew herself well enough to realize we wouldn't be a good match because that is who I am. And that's a bit too much energy for her. And I get that. And that's okay. I'm not the right person for all people. Now, when I was telling this to my friend, she laughed and she said, "Oh my goodness, that's great. You're going to have to do a podcast on this." I don't know. That was probably a month ago. And I thought, maybe I will. And here it is. It's happening. So thank you, Lori. Anyway, I did choose to smile and choose to take what she said, not as an insult, but as some insight. And I was able to choose a better thought than something like, "Oh my goodness, people think I'm a phony. How's that going to make me feel terrible?" I turned it around and I was like, "Wow, thank you. Yes, I am a chipper, positive, happy person. That's awesome because that's exactly who I want to be." Now, if I had been like, maybe I am a phone, that would be worth considering as well. But since I knew the answer was no, that's not it, then I embraced that is who I am. She's right. Those are the things that I am. And that's a good thing. It's not offensive. So I'm curious to know, when was the last time you became defensive or had your feelings hurt? And I want you to question if it was because you were offended, you were insulted, maybe, or perhaps you felt attacked. And then let's think about our kiddos too, because they respond these ways as well. So think about how they react to things. I really want you to reflect on this and think about this. Let your mind have time and be still and let things come up for you and deal with them. It's really healthy to do that. Whatever feelings we are having, whatever feelings we are experiencing, they are there because we created them. Nobody else gives us our feelings. They can't hand over feelings to us. They can't. It's not possible. They do something, say something, and we have a thought about it because our feelings are created by our thoughts. So they're not giving us our feelings. Now, they are giving us information that we have thoughts about, and those thoughts create our feelings. But our feelings are created by our thoughts, the things we're thinking, and we get to control that. Now, right now, some of you may be feeling doubtful, right? Your eyes are like half shut, your head's tilted a little bit, and you're like, "I'm not sure that's true." And then you're feeling doubtful. See? I think that's perfect proof. You're taking what I said and you're creating a thought about that. I'm not making you feel doubtful. I'm not doubtful at all. If you're feeling doubtful, it's because you're thinking a thought that's creating that feeling. It happens so fast. Often we don't even catch that it's happening. And again, that's why it's important to reflect, to think, and to take time to journal and be still. We lose so many great opportunities to go deep in our own minds because we're so busy that we don't make time for stillness. But I want to encourage you to make time for stillness with this whole topic that I'm bringing up this week. Great insights can be found in moments of stillness. So I'm going to encourage you to practice this. You could practice this with your kids, especially if you have a child who you feel is often offended or feels defensive. Why? Get to the why of that. Or maybe it's for you yourself. Are there ways in which we can turn insults into insights Absolutely. It's going to require three things. One, you must be aware of them. Two, you must be willing to have conversations, whether with yourself conversations or maybe with your children. These conversations are important, and it's also going to require time, because if this isn't something that you've been doing or practicing, it may take some time to put these things into practice. Okay, so I'm going to give you quickly a child scenario and an adult scenario just to kind of walk you through how I would recommend that you do this and give it a try and let me know how it worked for you. So let's imagine somebody has told your child, maybe another child said it, maybe even an adult said it, maybe grandma said it. And this person, adult or child, says to your child, "Oh my gosh, you're so sensitive. You're too sensitive." First, your child needs to be aware that was said by another person who has a thought that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. This is why I'm saying awareness and then conversation are very important, especially with children. To be able to say to your child, "Hey, that is what that person believes, and they're allowed to believe it, but you don't have to believe it if you don't. That's okay." I think we need to have those conversations. Let people believe what they want. We don't have to be believers of it. But here's the first thing. If you notice, I did this in the other example. I think this is very important. Get curious and ask, is it true? Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe you are overly sensitive. But what does too sensitive even mean, or what does it look like? Awareness and conversation. Talk about it. Your child could surprise you and say, "Actually, Mom, it's true. I am the only one who gets this upset about things. I think I am too sensitive." Talk about that. Now, whether your child agrees or disagrees, this is where the insight happens. So, is that an insult? "You're too sensitive." Well, if it was a true statement, I wouldn't even say it's an insult. It's an awareness. But if your child's like, "That's not true. I don't think that I'm too sensitive." Okay, let's talk about the insight portion of this. What does it mean to be a sensitive person? A sensitive person is someone who is caring, empathetic, emotionally aware. Doesn't that sound like a good thing? Being sensitive means you can connect with others deeply because you feel deeply. It's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So thank you for pointing that out. I am a sensitive person. It's what makes me who I am. And I feel things deeply. Again, awareness, conversation, and it may take time to accept that is who you are and to be proud of it. Okay, let's look at an adult scenario. Let's imagine that someone tells you, "Oh my gosh, you take forever to make decisions." Has anyone ever said that to you? People have said that to me. Are you offended by such a statement? I don't think there's any need to be. Again, that's somebody else's thought, and they are allowed to think what they want, just like you can think what you want. You don't have to change their mind, and you can allow them to be wrong about you. So you could disagree with them, not change their mind, and still live a very happy life. But again, you want to get curious and you want to ask yourself, is it true? Do I take forever to make decisions? First off, forever is a very long time. So right there, I'd be like, well, I don't take forever. That's not true. That's an exaggeration. I take longer than others to make decisions. That could be true. Whether you agree or disagree, get insightful. Don't just be like, well, that's an insult. How dare they? No, we need to be done with being offended. We want to be insightful. So instead, consider it. Maybe you are someone who takes time to make decisions because you're thorough and you're intentional and you're thoughtful. full of thought as you make your decisions. Be glad that's who you are. We need thinkers. You're a thinker. It's not a bad thing. I hope as you move along throughout your day that you pay close attention to the things that are said to you or to those you love. Are they insults or are they just someone else's observations and thoughts? Do you agree? Do you need to agree? Do you disagree? How does it matter? Reflect, be still, be insightful. Please don't be offended. Be curious. If you can increase your awareness and give yourself time to reflect on the insight it's offering you, you can actually be really glad that someone said it and someone pointed it out and someone brought it to the surface, gave it some attention. That will lead to some valuable and elevated conversations. Before I go, I have to share one quick story because I was realizing that there is an opposite side to this topic. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but this has happened to me a few times where at first I thought I was being complimented, only to realize it really wasn't a compliment after all. I don't know if that's happened to you. So we're going to go back in time. Let's see. It was the summer of 1999, and I was 8 months pregnant at the time. I had a teacher friend who had called me in a pinch, and she had asked if I would substitute for her high school summer school class. Now, I didn't teach high school at that time, and I certainly wasn't super excited about a summer school class in the heat of summer being 8 months pregnant. But this group of seniors, she assured me, was a great group of kids, and they needed to pass this class in order to successfully graduate. They were allowed to walk with the agreement that they would pass this class. Now, they did not want to be there on this 100 plus degree day as much as any 8-month pregnant woman wouldn't want to be there either. But there we were. And I will tell you, the kids were a kick. They were a great group of kids. When we had let out for the lunch break, most of the kids left, but there were a group of girls, maybe 3 or 4, and one boy, a friend of theirs, who all hung back and they stayed in the classroom to eat lunch with me. It was really nice. And I had a million questions for them because that's who I am. I'm a very inquisitive person, and they were open books. Now, this was a continuation high school, so they'd already tried the regular high school route, and it didn't work for them. And they were in this continuation high school just about out the door. Their stories were heartbreaking. From their broken homes to their jailed parents, I mean, the works. And my heart went out to them. We were really bonding. And by the end of lunch, I was pushing my big body out of my chair and I was wrapping up my lunch to put it away when the boy that was there had said, all of a sudden, like just out of the blue, I've got it. I figured it out. Oh, this whole time, I knew you reminded me of someone famous. And I looked at him, and all the girls were looking straight at me. And I hesitantly said, okay, who do I remind you of? And in my head, I was imagining he was going to say Jessica Lange or Gina Davis, because those were 2 actresses that I'd already been told that I resembled from various movies, and they were around my age. Oh, but no. You can just imagine my surprise when he says, do you know who Britney Spears is? Okay. Now, you have to remember, this was 1999. She wasn't crazy girl at this point. Britney Spears was an adorable pop star at this time. And I couldn't believe it. I'm sure the smile on my face was huge. I was like, what a compliment. I mean, here I am as big as a house. And this 18-year-old kid is comparing me to the most darling, talented superstar. So I just smiled at him. I'm like, why, yes, of course. I know who Britney Spears is. And I must say, the shocked expressions on the girls' faces did match mine. We all were just kind of staring at him. And he just starts nodding his head up and down, up and down. He's like, yep, good. He goes, I bet you look just like her mom. Laughed so hard. The four girls started backhanding him. He's like ducking his head under his arms. And they're all yelling at him. That's not a compliment. Britney Spears is too old to be her daughter. You just insulted her. So funny. It really was hysterical. It was fantastic. It's one of my favorite stories ever. You know what else? To this day, I still see that as a complete compliment. Right on, my friends. Well, thanks so much for tuning in and listening this week. Hey, if this was something that you found valuable, don't forget you want to subscribe or follow so that every time a new episode is dropped, you'll be the first to know. And hey, before you go, if you are looking to get some of this academic writing under your belt and outsourced so that it's one less thing, freeing you up to enjoy more time with your family, hey, you're going to want to head over to writeonweb.com to see what kinds of resources and materials I have available for you. I will look forward to seeing you there, and I will look forward to seeing you here in our next episode. Right on.